Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of Irish Illustrated Insider. I'm Tim Priester with Tim O'Malley and Drew Mentok from Irish Illustrated. Pete Sampson of The Athletic is joining us on a Monday here. Notre Dame goes to East Rutherford, New Jersey, and beats the daylights out of Navy 51-14. And I expected Navy to be, that's a pretty veteran football team. And Brian Newberry, after the game, said the moment was too big for them. I didn't think it would be, but it clearly was.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I mean, I think the major surprise was that if you could ever say there was a threat, every threat was extinguished immediately by Notre Dame. I really thought there'd be at some point Navy would make it threatening 11-point game, 28-17, what used to be a 28-point game or 21-point game, and there'd be just a little game pressure. But their Notre Dame's defense and Notre Dame's offense made that was the reason. Number one, it wasn't, and number two is their own miscues were just I can't remember a team shooting themselves in the foot like that because Pete, seven fumbles, you said? Lost five? There were seven fumbles at one point?
Yeah, and with one pick on top of it.
Yeah. At least that's a play, though. The pick was a play that Leonard Moore made.
Yeah, it reminded me. This is a kind of tangential, but like I remember having a conversation in the Michigan press box like 10 years ago with somebody who covered Michigan, and Michael Floyd was catching these like just lob touchdowns, and they're like, "Why can't the guy just turn around and play the ball?" And it's because he's guarding Michael Floyd and he's kind of like losing his stuff. And I felt like Navy sort of lost its stuff against Notre Dame because they're like, Riley Mills is huge. And like, oh my God, like, do you see the size of Bo Collins? And like, I can't believe how fast Jeremiah Love is. And I think they just like kind of lost it, which is not something you would associate with Navy. But I think on overtime, Bryce used the term presence. And I think it's a great way to phrase it. It's just like
Yeah.
the stature, size, and speed of Notre Dame, while obvious, isn't always felt in this game. And Notre Dame's coaching staff did a really nice job of making Navy feel it. And I think that's how you end up with the
Yeah,
six
I
turnovers.
agree. And they've been talking about imposing their will and being physical against Navy, and it certainly was the case against Georgia Tech the week before. Drew, what was your prediction? I don't know. I don't know what your spread was on the game.
I think I had a 19-point
Yeah. So you
prediction
were,
victory.
yeah.
So, and
Oh,
I
nice
I do
cover.
wonder too that first fumble, if that really just threw Navy off, they hadn't dealt with a turnover since the first game.
Yeah,
And like we've kind of
that's what's
talked about, Notre Dame has dealt with being behind and things like that. They really haven't faced that adversity, and I wonder if it just kind of messed with them. They're used to playing ahead and be able to do what they want. And I wonder once that first one happened, the second one, and I wonder if it just kind of
Well, yeah.
collectively got in the
When
team's head too.
when the first one happened, they were already trailing 7-0, so they knew it was going to be 14-0. And Tim, you're right, they did extinguish it. You talked about there's no turning points in those kind of games, but I referenced it in tail of tape too about at the end of the first half when
yeah.
Navy's in a position to pull it to within two scores. Two scores is always manageable then for them. And they missed the field goal, and then Notre Dame, turns around and makes it 31-7. And the wind was, somebody said to me about Rendell's punts. Was it Rendell's punts or was it the wind? I think it was probably both. His punts are a little bit funky, but clearly we were down on the field before the game. But when I watched a replay of the game, you see the referees, pants blowing in the wind, and you could see just how difficult it was. But that the moment was too big. It was big. It was too big for Alex Teska because he couldn't catch pitches, and their punt returner, their kick returner, was it two different guys, or I don't even remember now, but
The attempt to pick up the punt in the air
that
was
was ridiculous.
that's just
Hmm.
Yeah, that was just really bad. But hey, Notre Dame played well. They ran it well. Riley Leonard, I thought in a lot of respects that first half, certainly the first quarter, that may have been as well as he's thrown the ball just because they went downfield with it a little bit more. And that's Mike Denbrock having to feel like, okay, this guy's ready for me to throw that deep out to Faison, which Greg McElroy said, I think that's the best pass I've ever seen Riley Leonard throw. And he was probably right.
this is going to Monday musings, but it's Pete's stat from the last few years. First three games, Riley Leonard on throws of 10 yards or more, that they have to travel 10 yards through the air. 8 for 22, 114 yards with an interception that you guys might recall the pick if you think about the college football season this year. Since that time, over the last 5 games, 22 of 40, 484 yards, 6 TDs, and that 1 pick against Georgia Tech.
I mean,
If he keeps doing that, they don't lose until playoff game number 2.
Yeah, go ahead, Pete.
I was just going to say, like, what they've figured out with Leonard has really been, I think, one of maybe the story of the season. And I was thinking about this coming back. Like, I wonder if there are some parallels to what Jack Cohn went through in 2021, where up until halftime of Virginia Tech, he was really bad.
Yeah.
Really bad. And then was really good the rest of the way, including the bowl loss to Oklahoma State. So, I know Riley Leonard was asked after the game about, do we underestimate the time it takes to learn an offense? And I talked to Ian Book about this last week, and Book was just like, I can't even imagine the idea that you would master a playbook in a year. It's just impossible. But 6 games into it, 7, 8 games into it, I think that we're we're seeing the natural growth of both Leonard and Denbrock understanding what Leonard does well and does
totally
not do
agree.
well.
Totally agree. And Mike Denbrock should get a lot of credit for that. Drew, Riley Leonard has gotten better every week. I mean, that's
Since game 2. Yeah, since game 2.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Since game 2. Give Mike Denbrock credit for that. And the guy that I want to, why aren't people lauding what Joe Rudolph has done with the offensive line? They're averaging 235 yards rushing per game in the last 6 games, 6.0 per carry on their running backs. He's done it with, it was a pieced together offensive line to begin with. I think he deserves a ton of credit for the way the offensive line has come together. Is it great? No. It's going to it has a chance to get better, but we're so quick to blame as soon as a unit or a player doesn't play well. I think those are 2 guys that deserve a heck of a lot of credit.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, it's encouraging to see how much this team can improve. That's what you want to see from a good coach, especially when, like you mentioned, they've lost a lot of players. They've had a lot of injuries, especially along the offensive line. Like you mentioned, I think they're tied for 6th in yards per carry. I think Anthony Knapp an improvement, like even just in pass protection, has been substantially better since the first 3 games of the year, where I think he gave up 3 sacks in those games. So he's really settled in, and you've really seen what some of these guys can do once they kind of get more comfortable with the playbook and things like that.
Watching the replay of the game, it's nice to have Billy Schrauth on the field. He has a physical presence to him. I loved, I think it was after the first flub by Navy, and Notre Dame was inside the 5, and they had stopped Love on a run, and their nose guard, who's a pretty good player. There's some good players on that defense. It didn't always show, but Landon Robinson, and it was somebody that Denbrock had pointed out during the week. Well, Landon Robinson was given somebody some crap, and Billy Schrauth stepped in and said, "Not on my watch, man." And it was really, it was really great. Not that Billy Schrauth is a huge veteran of that offensive line, but you want him on the field. He's going to be a very good, if not great player. It was just kind of good to see that the offensive line step forward like that. Who else you guys want to mention from this game? Because, defensive side of the ball, I don't want to step over a question here, but I thought Tui Alamaka played really, really well. Snead did some really good things. The two defensive tackles, I think, just set a tone. They didn't put up big numbers, but they're interior defensive linemen. I just thought that they set a tone. It certainly looked like Al Golden had a plan as to how he wanted to deal with things. The notion, some people were complaining about the defense. Well, they gave up some big plays and had Navy not had. Do you think you're going to stop every big play? Do you really? You think you're going to stop a flea flicker? You think you're going to stop when the ball's on the ground, a quarterback picks it up and throws it to the fullback downfield?
When I do like the things I like and things I didn't like for Monday Musings, normally it would be like they got gashed on 3 big plays. I expected them to get gashed on more than 3 big plays. That's even when Navy's no good, they get you on something big. They got Notre Dame last year on like a 37-yarder. It just looks different. It's going to happen. Priester, when we were driving back to the hotel, all I can say about the defense is I was like, who's my defensive MVP for the notebook? Because you got to get somebody down there. I was like, well, it's not Leonard Moore. Those were just two big plays. Jack Kaiser played well. Jalen Snead scored a touchdown and played well. Howard Cross. Riley Mills. You know what? It's Al Golden.
Well, yeah, when they
Golden
all
was the
play
defensive
well,
MVP.
when they
That's
all
how well
play
they all
well.
played. Al Golden was the defensive MVP. They were fantastic.
Yeah, and they eventually shut down those big plays too. I think the
Yeah.
difference was almost like 4 yards per play from the first half to the second half allowed too. Like they really adjusted and kind of figured that out. And I mean, that's really what put the game away too.
I realize this is a really big if, and I want to talk about the 47-yard run and the 60-yard run. But other than that, uh, 12 carries.
The
I mean, 12
47-yard
carries
run
for
was a
22
really
yards.
impressive individual run too. The 60 looked like a bust where you're like, oh God, why did that happen?
I've looked at that extensively, and I have ideas. I don't know if L.
Right.
Golden would agree of my breakdown of it, but and I don't think it was Snead's. I don't think it was a Snead issue on the 47-yard run.
No, it's and that when I asked around it, there were multiple breakdowns on that play.
Yeah.
Like as is often the case against Navy when they hit you with
Yes.
a big play. It's not just one person sometimes.
But I also think, and again, you guys will have a chance to look at it further. But I don't, like now I'm forgetting exactly who had the edge, but he had to keep the edge. It was a great read by Horvath. And that happens too. There are times where against their offense, if you just do your job, and that's always the big statement again about option football. If you just do your job, everything will be okay. Well, that's not always the case against their offense because had the defensive end abandoned, the edge, well, then they would have went up the edge because if you look downfield, Christian Gray was 20 yards downfield of being blocked. So they would have had a big play up the middle. It may not have been a touchdown. I think sometimes part of the problem was that KVA one time, I think, was completely deceived by, I think it was a 60-yard run, the eye candy and just evacuated. Well, that's exactly where Horvath ran through.
Yeah, I mean,
And that's like that. They're going to get you. They're really well coached,
Yeah.
despite the fumbles. So when that happens, they figure out a way to hurt you. Like the most shocking thing was like that they couldn't complete that flea flicker for a touchdown to Horvath. Like because it seems like they always connect
he
on
dropped
that
it. Yeah.
when they set it up. And they just couldn't get Notre Dame on that one. But look, overall, 14 points, 2 huge plays. They totally shut down the fullback. There was a complete non-factor in the game.
Yeah, Pete and I are staying we're not resigning to start our own podcast, The Unfettered
Yeah.
Fullback, because as Pete said during the game, the fullback was quite fettered.
Yes, no. Dabo Fofana was not much of an X factor in Saturday's game.
No, he wasn't. I do like that Heidenreich kid. He's pretty good. Number 22, I think he's a pretty good little player.
Yeah, I just like it's crazy to me. They've given up 5 rushing touchdowns all year, and 4 of them have been 1 yard.
Yeah, I wrote that somewhere along the line. I noted that. Yeah, no, look, you're going to get fooled sometimes by them. It's just really, really difficult to stop everything. I didn't realize. Did we know about Horvath's thumb going into the game? I wasn't aware of
I
it,
wasn't aware of that.
but clearly it was an issue because not that he's a pass catcher, but he dropped one in the end zone, and then he just dropped the damn ball in the end zone again with Tui Alamaka coming around the edge and putting some pressure. But he was compromised a little bit, and so that played in Notre Dame's favor. I don't know about you guys, but when I saw that Notre Dame was ranked number 8 in the country in the Associated Press poll, and I realized that's going to lose its value coming up early next week when the committee starts ranking. But I did not expect Notre Dame to jump up to number 8. Obviously, a lot of voters put credence in Notre Dame hammering Navy.
Yeah, it definitely matters, and I think that there's a reasonable discussion about Notre Dame versus BYU versus Iowa State, Clemson, like some kind of one-loss or undefeated teams that maybe have not played the most taxing schedules. But I think it tracks back to the A&M win. Like
Yes.
nobody else in that conversation has a win like A&M, and they're as crazy as this sounds, you would much rather have the A&M win and the Northern Illinois loss than the other way around. Like you
It's
would be a
true.
lot less of a punchline, but you would be ranked probably where A&M probably below where A&M is now.
Oh yeah.
And Notre Dame would be really scrambling to make it at 11-1 if they did not have the A&M win, and obviously A&M going on to play really good football from there.
I'm thankful that Marcel Reed stood along the sideline on August 31st or whatever the day was, because of the early game. We don't get an opportunity to see a lot of the other games, but we did on Saturday night when LSU played Texas A&M, and that dude's a catalyst.
Yeah, I guess when we're asked these questions in July from now on, would you rather lose to this team or that team? We better be prepared for an answer because it mattered this for the first time ever. It really, really mattered.
Yeah.
I know Notre Dame went undefeated in 2018, but like that Michigan win and Michigan's little revenge tour they went on after that was huge for Notre Dame too. I mean, Michigan was great until Notre Dame was clearly they were great until the Ohio State game, and Notre Dame was clearly going to be in the 14 playoff then. This is nuts though, because when you say none of those teams have played what Notre Dame has played, I mean it is Notre Dame against Texas A&M. And otherwise, Notre Dame's schedules like their schedules are.
Yeah.
It's just not
Yeah.
strong enough. But it doesn't matter. A&M, keep going, man. If Notre Dame and A&M played again, it would be more of a rock fight. Nobody would score on each other. Those defenses are nuts, man. I mean, I know the offenses have improved. I mean, Notre Dame's had some attrition on defense, but those defenses are great.
I think we've had a lot of people on our message board freaking out that Texas A&M might pass Notre Dame at some point in the rankings, and I feel like that's probably the least of their worries. Like the better A&M looks, the better it is for Notre Dame ultimately. Like you'd
Yes.
rather hear that not happen, but that's fine if they look like they're that impressive and they keep beating top 25 teams by 10 plus points. So
Yeah, the only way that A&M is passing Notre Dame is if they beat Texas, in which point they're in the SEC championship game, and I would be fine with that, honestly. Like if A&M has run the table from Notre Dame and they're playing great and they have a win over Texas and LSU, I I would have a hard time like pounding the table for Notre Dame to still be ahead of them. However, then I think A&M would have to win the SEC, at which point it'd be irrelevant whether A&M was before ahead or before them because they would be automatically included.
Yeah. Now, the way Notre Dame could have changed that, of course, is if Florida State was acting like Florida State this year and they're acting like Bemidji State instead. So,
I think they're on track for their fifth losing season in 7 years.
well, that's true, but they won
Maybe let's put
they
some
won
respect on Bemidji.
Well, they went. I don't know what Bemidji's doing this year, so I could be disrespectful, but they did what Florida State did win 23 games in 2022 and 2023, and we didn't expect this. But anyway, for the record, the top 10 is Oregon number 1, Georgia 2, Penn State 3 with a big game at home this weekend, correct? They're at home. Ohio State 4, Miami 5,
Ugh.
Texas 6, Tennessee 7, Notre Dame 8, BYU 9. And Texas A&M up to 10. Yeah, I mean, I guess I haven't really looked at who's Clemson, Indiana. You say Indiana and Iowa State haven't had I just didn't expect. I mean, did you guys expect Notre Dame to be number 8 this week?
No,
I didn't.
no, I thought that.
Mhm.
And it's like
So-
I think that some people freaked out the other week when they dropped after the Stanford game.
Stanford is when they dropped a spot.
But it's like they were tied with Ohio State. Or I'm sorry, tied with Iowa State.
Yeah, right. The
Mhm.
points were
And
the
then
same.
Iowa State picked up like one more vote or 5 more votes
Right.
than Notre Dame. So it looked like Notre Dame dropped, but they really didn't.
I tried to explain that, but it wasn't received really well.
Could you put your pitchfork down and just listen?
I tried to be objective, but it wasn't received very well on that. Anyway, anything else we want to address here in segment 1?
just that I'd like to have Notre Dame run into Miami or Penn State in a playoff game instead of some of the other teams you mentioned, Pete. Come on. Good Lord. Let's get that matchup signed up for Miami or Penn State as opposed to Georgia and Oregon and the other teams. That's
Yeah, how about the yeah, I think when the playoffs the presumption was that the Big Ten champion or SEC champion would be number 1,
Mhm.
and the SEC Big Ten other champion would be number 2. I'm not so sure that's going to be the case especially if Miami runs the table. So there's a chance. Let's say Notre Dame is the 7 seed. Maybe they get to host Clemson in the first round.
That'll be harder than
And
Miami.
then Miami ran the table, so they're
Yeah.
the 2. So you get Miami in the quarterfinals. Just
You gotta sign up for it, but Clemson in the first round would be a dogfight.
Yeah,
Sakes, that would be
they
game.
played some pretty good football here this
Yeah.
year. Yeah, no doubt.
I'd like to play Navy in the first round again. That'd be good.
I don't think they're going to make it. Their odds dropped it. Hey, hey, credit to the broadcast on Saturday. They opened with the chart about percentage of going to the playoffs, and I could be wrong, but I don't think they ever mention it again, or if they did, they didn't make a big deal of it 12 times, like the crew from the previous week. Looking to upgrade your wardrobe, founded by ND alum Ga Wang, you've seen ESQ's custom clothing on the player walk and all of your favorite players and coaches. With over a decade of making the best bespoke clothing available, ESQ will help you look and feel your best. From a perfect fitting suit or sport coat, shirt or bomber jacket, or that perfect tuxedo for wedding season, check out esqclothing.com and book an appointment to upgrade your wardrobe today. Mention Iris Illustrated and get 10% off your entire purchase. That's esqclothing.com. Coming up, Burning Up the Board, segment 2.
If you're coming to a game this season, you have to check out Game Day Your Way, Notre Dame's tailgate service provider. Game Day offers everything you need, including tailgate gear, catering, and even beverage delivery right to your spot. And their Irish Express transportation from Chicago allows you to tailgate while you travel to their all-inclusive party zone in South Bend. Let Game Day deal with all the hassle so you can focus on the fun. For tailgates, tickets, transportation, and more, visit GameDayYourWay.com.
Welcome back to segment 2, Burning Up the Boards. Our first question from Domer Paul 87. Notre Dame jumped in Idle, Clemson, and Iowa State. What scenarios need to happen for ND to maintain their top 10 status while idle this week? Do 3 ranked wins at the time of their game help the cause?
Yeah, I mean, I looked at the kind of teams right behind them, what they have going on next week. It helps that BYU, who's number 9 right behind them, also has a bye, so it's really hard to see them jumping Notre Dame, obviously. Louisville's at Clemson. Clemson's favored by 11.5. Texas Tech's at Iowa State's favored by 15.5. And I kind of think like the Notre Dame game over the weekend, when you beat Navy by that much and you exceed expectations by so much, that leads to you jumping people, even if they're off. So I kind of feel like those spreads matter. If Iowa State wins big or Clemson wins by a lot more over Louisville by a lot more than Notre Dame did, that helps. Whereas vice versa, like Texas dropped in the rankings for the weekend because they only beat Vanderbilt on the road by 3. So I think that's kind of how I look at it. On if those teams can jump them while Notre Dame's off. So I would guess I would look for those scores, but ultimately it's hard to see them dropping out of the top 10 because Texas A&M and BYU would have to jump them in addition to Iowa. One of those 2 teams would have to jump them in addition to Iowa State.
Well,
and
I don't know.
Clemson.
Who wants a piece of Vanderbilt now?
Yeah, I was going to say, that's unfortunate.
Pete,
Texas
go
is
ahead.
probably like, hey.
Yeah. No, I mean, as long as A&M wins at South Carolina, Notre Dame should be fine. It's like if the shine from that is removed, then I could see like Notre Dame entering a different kind of discussion about where they should be ranked. But as long as A&M exceeds expectations, then I think Notre Dame should be in good shape.
Question from Martin Even Flow. Is it too late to start a junior Tuihalamaka appreciation thread? We all had our doubts when he was moved to Viper. He's exceeded expectations in being more than solid. Juxtapose where he was 2 years ago against Navy.
Yeah, I tell you what, why this is interesting is we didn't have our doubts when he was moved to Viper. We had our doubts when we saw him play Viper last year. Like we thought, oh, this will work out well because Pete and I we talked about it the first time we ever saw him out in the practice field. Like that guy looks like he can get after the passer a little bit. Now it was an open run, but he looked good doing it. He's played well. He's especially.
I don't think he was. I didn't think he was very effective against Georgia Tech, but he was very effective.
But
against
Louisville,
Navy.
Stanford, and Navy, he's played really well 3 of the last 4. And of all guys you want to play well 3 out of 4, that's about all you can ask for from your 3rd string Viper. He's played well 3 out of 4 games. That's fantastic for him.
Yeah, I mean he's undersized, but he's got some natural ability. Is he the guy that's going to make a difference in a playoff game? Probably not. Is he a guy that's going to make a difference the rest of the regular season? Probably. Yeah. Like he can be part of the reason why Notre Dame goes 11-1.
Yeah, I agree. He hasn't played well enough to make you forget about either of the two players that got hurt that he replaced,
No.
but he's exceeded our expectations in a way that he needed to. Like I looked it up since Patello went down, he has 14 tackles, 1.5 for a loss, 11 pressures, half a
Oh,
sack, a
wow.
fumble recovery, and an interception. So he's
11
he's third on
overall.
the pressures.
Oh, wow. That is
Yeah, so
really,
he's
and
third on the team in pressures right now. So he's really kind of stepped up in some ways that need to. He had 4 against Navy, which is kind of hard to do. I mean, I know they drop back more than they used to, but that's quite high. So
yeah, no, it is. I thought, remember we recently said, was it last week? Oh, yeah, it was last week. And we said Drake Bowen played violently. Tua Alamaka played
Yeah.
violently against Navy. And that's important. During the week, there was talk about, when you tackle Navy, you got to pull them backwards. You can't keep letting them fall forward because that's how they keep moving the sticks. I realize their approach has changed a little bit, but it's important to violently pull them back. And I thought Tua Alamaka did a lot of that. He was really good. As the game carried on, he got even better and better against Navy.
Next from Irish Gambler, now that you've seen the new Navy, which version of the Academy will give the Irish more trouble in the future? This 2024 version or previous triple option versions, assuming a game without the turnovers, of course.
Oh, definitely the new offense. We look, if all you watched of Navy was Navy against Notre Dame, well, then you're not very impressed, especially the giveaways. But and again, we know that they didn't play a real tough schedule, but that's a problematic offense to deal with. And Drew Cronick. That's all that's all we talked about during the week, or at least I did. And they did hit, and we talked about in segment 1, they did hit some plays that are problematic, and they're probably going to do that against everybody because there's just so much in their offense now that if Cronick calls the right play against the right look, they're going to hit something big. So no doubt in my mind that the new offense will just, it makes them more diverse, and you have way, way, way more to prepare for.
My very unscientific take would be Notre Dame or Navy played well enough to score 24 points on Notre Dame last weekend. And if it was 51-24, probably would have felt a little bit differently about it. Not a lot, but a little. And like, this is a really good Notre Dame defense. I don't think that Navy's old offense, even when it was humming, would have scored 24 points against this version of Notre Dame's defense.
That's a good point.
Mhm.
I agree.
Yeah,
I'll go ahead, Drew.
oh, I heard somebody from CBS Sports say like once Notre Dame got up 14-0, it was over. And I actually disagree with that because I think this Navy team could actually come back. Whereas in the past, that would have been the case. You got up like that, it probably would have been near impossible. But they score enough quickly that they can come back if Notre Dame gets a lead earlier, and they don't need to just play ball control and hope nothing goes wrong.
I have a definitive answer to the first part of this question, though. Which version of the Academy will give the Irish more trouble in the future? It is the version that doesn't have Al Golden on Notre Dame's sideline.
Yeah, that's a good point. How about just to pop it, Leonard Moore? Good Lord. They did some things with him where they brought him up near the line of scrimmage because because he's physical in the run game, so they could put him on the second level and do some things with him. Once again, 2 games in a row where we talk about, Leonard Moore is only 6'1", but he has great length. The interception shows his great length. Him
He's
coming
not
off the
6'1",
edge.
they're just lying. There's no way.
Coming off the edge, maybe. I don't know why they'd make him shorter than.
He's the only guy they make shorter.
Drew Pine and
Gross.
Leonard Moore are the same height.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just like
Sure.
when he made the tackle on the botched field goal, the hold against Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
You saw him come off the edge, you stop it, and it's like, look how long he is. Then you see him make that interception. He gets a foot down. Look how long he is, man. It shows a lot, and he's a smart football player. Benjamin Morrison's great, but Leonard Moore is in the process of becoming great.
The question,
also.
we were asked the question and we dismissed it very quickly on this podcast. Leonard Moore is going to have a better year, possibly, in his half year than Benjamin Morrison did.
Without the interception.
Without the interception. Yeah, without the, I know, that's the.
Although he's got one in counting.
Right.
Morrison said it.
No, then Morrison had this year.
Morrison said every corner on the team was going to be better than him, including Jaden Mickey. So he made it too easy to
All
dismiss
right.
the praise.
That's
Okay.
true. He
All
did
right.
say that about every corner on the team, including
Okay.
Mickey.
I'll give you that. But
Max Hurlman, he's going to have a better career
his,
than I am at a quarterback.
his statement about Leonard Moore had a lot of truth to it. It's
Hey
not,
Tim, maybe Morrison was just saying all those words to Pete, so to make up for the words Mickey wasn't saying to me and Tyler James that day. That could have been just needed to fill the void of the words that were being spoken.
he was silence is Golson that day.
Yeah.
Where are we at?
From
Kay Garrity.
Garrity, any rumblings on the 12th team on Notre Dame's schedule for 2025?
Oh shoot, I meant to ask everybody if they had any rumblings. If not, we weren't going to ask this question.
I heard Alabama. Who's up next?
Is that right?
Yeah.
There was I'm trying to pull up the chart. I have a chart of teams lacking a 12th game in 2025. Notre Dame obviously is one of them. Stanford is also one of them.
Yeah, that was the one.
It seems like that would make too much sense not to do. But they haven't done it, so I'm not sure how I'm supposed to read into that.
Yeah, I heard a wild rumor that Notre Dame's looking at adding one of the top 7 teams in the country currently ranked. Actually, I put this
Why don't
question.
you tell us that rumor since it's a
No,
wild
I'm not
rumor?
gonna. No, I'm gonna be. Yeah, it's so wild. I'm not even going to justify it beyond being a jerk about
Well,
it.
I can
and
get a
saying it.
14% guess on it though. Then we can figure this
Yeah.
out.
I actually
It would
put
be.
this.
Oh, it would be interesting this year after playing 4 teams that aren't in the group of or Power Four to then add that because I don't know Boise State did they join the Pac-12 in 2 years, but they play Navy and Boise State are the only potentially non Power Four teams they play next year. So it'd be interesting if they had 10
Yeah,
Power Four teams on the schedule.
these are the teams that have an opening. Obviously Notre Dame does. I'm not going to read all of them, but one of them is LSU. And obviously Miami is on there. They can't add Miami because they're already playing Miami. So
That would be a tragic mistake if they did it.
yeah, but Stanford is on there, and then it's a mix of there's some ACC schools. Baylor is on there, Oregon State's on there, Rutgers, Temple, Tulsa, UConn. It just unless somebody else moves something, there's not a marquee opponent to be had.
You know that when you said yuck there on Temple, Tulsa, UConn, Tim, 2 of those teams won the last time they came to Notre Dame Stadium. Just want to point that out.
They won't this time.
They won't this time. You're right. I'd vote for LSU at a neutral site at Schoolfield to start the season. Our next question is from Kay Beasley with the bye. Could you guys run through who has exhausted a redshirt year and who projects to lose the year of eligibility?
We've covered this here recently, but I'll be real quick about it because Carson Hobbs joined the group that used a year of eligibility. So the guys that have used a year of eligibility in the freshman class: Bryce Young, KVA, Logan Thomas, Aeneas Williams, Leonard Moore, Carson Hobbs, Anthony Knapp, and Kennedy Urlacher. 2 guys that have played 3 games: Kedron Young and
Gerby Lambert.
Teddy and I'm sorry, 3 guys: Gerby Lambert, Kennedy, Kedron Young, and I'm beginning to confuse the Rezacks, the defensive back Rezac, Teddy, I believe, correct?
Teddy, yes.
So, Carr, Cam Williams, Tay Johnson, Micah Gilbert, Saldate, who, by the way, Mike Denbrock gushed about him last week, and he really, really likes Saldate. Prescott, Sevillano, Larson, Peter Jones, Tabron, Benny, Powell, Cahoon, and Mullins. Those guys are all going to preserve a year of eligibility unless something really, really drastic happens.
So if Tay Johnson
has he played?
No, I'm saying if Tay Johnson is now healthy, he could play 4 games plus a playoff. I'm talking special teams, obviously, but there's no one really to switch with, though. You know how we talked about in the past, it would be like this freshman plays 4 games and then he goes on the shelf.
Yeah, Jaden Osbury did that last year.
Right. So I don't know. He doesn't have to switch out. I would play Kedron Young as needed because there's no such thing as a good 5th-year running back that's healthy. And I would absolutely not, under any circumstances, put Gerby Lambert in for a 5th game or a 4th game until USC. We talked about this, not the other games. If Emil Wagner goes down and it's a 17-17 game against USC in the first half, you want Gerby Lambert to come in, not somebody else you want to put at right tackle. Right, so Gerby Lambert should not play. And
We
at
did.
USC, he could be eligible to play.
Yeah, we did have people ask that question because Lambert did not play the other day against Navy, and that was done with absolutely with a purpose. Question from good question from Terry Benedict. Where would this team be without Riley Mills if Riley Mills and Howard Cross III had not come back for the 2024 season? I think they would that you would have had to have gone out and gotten some transfer defensive tackles.
Yes. So let's assume they didn't for the sake of let's assume they got the equivalent of Chris Smith, right?
Okay.
Sure.
Chris Smith from Harvard. He came and played and helped.
Yep.
Well, they lose to A&M. I don't know.
Yes.
They
Yeah.
still lose to North. They lose to Northern Illinois because Northern Illinois just shoved them anyway. They're probably 5-3, right?
Yeah. 5-3. 5-3. They're no better than 6-2.
No, they're not better than 6-2.
And I think 6-2 might. They're
I
one
bet
of the two.
Louisville
They're
could
6-2
get you.
or 5-3.
And Louisville could have gotten you without Howard Cross
Yeah.
and Riley Mills in there. That's
Drew,
Well,
who would they be and who would they be playing? Yeah, you would hope. Well, Rubio
would have been
still would've got
Onye
hurt.
until week 5 or 6.
Yeah.
A lot of
Mook
Donovan
on
Heinisch.
probably
Ah,
would have played.
Donovan Heinisch. Sevillano would have had to have played. You would assume, right?
Oh,
Great
yeah.
question.
Well, and it's not
Yeah,
even
really
just
good
like
question.
the other tackles that they help out. Like I wrote about this more recently, but like since Botello and Bubakar went out, like they've stepped up as like pass rushers. In the last 4 games, they've had 7 pressures, 7 pressures, 8 pressures, then 3 against Navy and 5 total sacks in that time. So just like what they've done to make up for some of those losses off the edge, I think has been pretty substantial too.
And just to clarify, Drew, you said 11 pressures from Tui Alamaka. That's a Pro Football Focus stat.
Yeah, that's
It's
a
not
pro
an
football.
yeah, it's not an NCAA stat. If it was 11 NCAA stat, but I mean, pressures are pressures.
Yeah.
That's really, really noteworthy. But
You guys
great.
know why just for people, I'll say it again for people listening, why the pressures are so different. It's not only the grading, it's not only like a looser grader. It's if Riley Mills pressures the quarterback out of the pocket, but he gets away, and then he makes Howard Cross miss, but he gets away, and then he throws it, and Tui Halamaka hits him as he throws. All 3 guys get a pressure for Pro Football Focus. For NCAA, Tui Halamaka gets the pressure.
Yeah.
He's the guy that pressured
Gotcha.
the throw. So that's
don't
why
know.
you get like more pressures for Pro Football Focus.
And
So
those,
this is just
and,
an
Good.
aside, but I went back and looked because I remember I think fans might have to partially credit Tim O'Malley for Cross being able to come back because in 2019 he brought up to Brian Kelly that Cross played the last snap against Michigan and Kelly had no idea. They probably might have caught it anyways, but I have an email that you clarify with me, I think maybe before that press conference in the morning or something. But you pointed it out to them and he was totally thrown off when you brought that up. So they could have accidentally played him too many games or something like.
We need if Riley Leonard gets NIL from Howard Cross or some Ruth Chris from Howard Cross, I would like Ruth Chris from Brian Kelly and Howard Cross for saving him the season. And
Tio always looking out for his alma mater.
also Notre Dame fans would not like Brian Kelly like they do now if you would have burned Howard Cross's red shirt right there.
Oh,
So
they
it
love
really
him.
saved his legacy.
Yeah. That was 2019, not 2018. I might have said the wrong year.
Yeah,
but
2019. It was me. The Michigan game. He went in nonsensically, and I was like, "What are you doing here? He shouldn't have been in. There's no reason to go in."
Yeah. Well, you didn't know how good he was going to be at that point either.
Yeah, I don't like burning them though. You know, you
Yeah.
loved him, and so did Annie Davis on our board. You guys
but-
love Howard Cross.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys I've loved that didn't pan out. But he was so extremely quick off the snap. It's like, oh my God, I know he's undersized, but look at that. And then he's mentally and emotionally built in a different way too. And so you add it all up, and it's a really good college football player. Question from Italian Jazz: which assistant coaches / coordinators seem most likely to be somewhere else by game 1 of 2025? I think there's, we frequently get this question, and it's until they leave, we're probably going to say their names first.
Yeah, just always bet the over. This is
Yeah.
the other always bet the over.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
D'Lo McCullough could, but he'll hold out for the right thing too. D'Lo McCullough, he'll hold out to
Yeah, I wondered if he would end up going back to Miami at some point, but I don't think Chuck Martin is not.
Yeah.
heading out. So I mean, somebody's going to move up. Like, will Mike Mickens become a coordinator somewhere? Maybe. Um, you know, Gino Gaduli. I know people
Be an offensive coordinator.
like him. Could he be an OC somewhere? I don't know.
I think he would
But
like to be an OC too. So I mean, that's kind of like the
yeah,
Well, the
it's
guy,
not happening here. So
right.
the guys in highest demand, of course, are Golden and Mickens and McCullough.
Yes, and I think Golden. I mean, I know McCullough is along those lines because he's going to be head coach sometime, but Golden and Mickens can make a lot more money than McCullough right now.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
that's if you're trying to look at it that way.
I think it's worth just keeping in mind, like if someone asked this question 1 year ago today, the answer probably would actually been Al Washington, which none of us would have said.
No one knew that right at the
Yeah,
time.
and then he ended up being a finalist for Boston College. So you just don't really know how to answer this question.
There are a lot of, well, let's put it this way, cornerback coaches are noticed a lot more than running back coaches. If your corners are great and you continually produce corners,
Yeah.
Yeah, now he's
that's
DBs, right? Like,
right. He's the whole
Mhm.
secondary. Yeah.
He's
Which
passing
I
game he's passing game coordinator too, right?
Right.
Offensive passing game
and to
coordinator.
to your point, Pete, I think being DB's coach makes him that much more attractive as a coordinator, right? Because he's
oh yeah,
coaching
that's where the game is.
four
Like
elevenths of the
your
defense.
ability to stop the run is not. No, I don't know if people are getting hired because you have great run defense.
Just ask Al Golden about that.
Yeah.
We've asked a few times. That really made people mad during the Northern Illinois game, but it seems like it works all the other times.
Yeah.
From Mayor CB, is there any particular reason Notre Dame has used Chris Mitchell as more of a short passing threat than deep threat as advertised? We have seen deep shots being taken with Greathouse and Collins more than Mitchell this season.
They've played 8 games. You didn't have a whole lot of trust in Riley Leonard throwing the deep ball. He did throw the deep ball to Mitchell against Northern Illinois. That didn't work out really well. No, it had nothing to do with Mitchell. I don't, I mean, I don't. It's a legitimate question because Jaden Greathouse was run down after making the catch on Saturday, and Collins isn't a burner either. I don't know. I don't. Mitchell is. I guess I'm a little surprised too, since his background was as a burner and getting behind the secondary and not route running, which is something
Right.
that we were told during the preseason.
I just think that they haven't had a deep passing game. So the version of this question could apply to every receiver on the team. Like, shouldn't they take more deep shots to insert player X? Like, they would. I'm sure that they would like to, but that's not the way the quarterback and the passing game have evolved.
Yeah, it is interesting though. Like I learned this is Pro Football Focus again, but like on passes over 20 yards, Leonard
Yeah.
I think is 21 on the year, and I think 9 of them have gone to Collins and Greathouse, and just one to Chris Mitchell. That wouldn't include like pass interference calls.
I'm
I don't
looking at
think, but
that
it is
too.
interesting how much more he's targeted.
There's
those
something
two.
wrong here, though. I'm looking at that too, Drew. There's something wrong because it has Bo Collins for 0 outside right catches deep, and I remember 2 touchdowns.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, look if you look at
Yeah,
the chart,
yeah.
they messed up. They must have transposed him with somebody else, I think. But that wouldn't change the total number. But I mean, Bo Collins has 2 touchdowns deep right. We saw those, right? It was Navy and Miami of Ohio.
Yeah.
Yep.
Is listed as 0, so that, and he's listed as 0 for 3 on the left in case I'm, directionally challenged. I'm not. So I don't know. It must be they must have transposed him with someone else.
They could, like, I looked at Chris Mitchell's deep passing from last year, and I think he doesn't have any on the right and like a bunch on the left. So maybe when people enter it, they just don't do it properly. Because I don't think he had a single deep. He had 34 targets, and I don't think a single one came on the right side
Oh, they
either.
might do
So
that,
it could just be something like that. I don't know.
Is it from the defense's perspective that they're?
But Collins has 0 touchdowns listed deep, but he has 2.
Oh yeah. Next question is from Siggles, and I've also included the handles of Flores JM and Annie Davis too, because they ask similar questions. The slant route and now Jordan Faison downfield have been 2 developments that are paying dividends since the last bye. What's another element in the passing game that Denbrock can add after bye week number 2?
I am going to steal John Bryce's because I agree with it.
Okay. Steal it.
That's the same side. There is a bubble screen to Jeremiah Love that keeps getting taken out. Is they're going to slip someone deep behind that when it matters. The fake block and go, because Jeremiah Love will garner all the attention still, even though that particular play doesn't work.
Yeah, which they did some version of that with Mitchell Evans, where
Yep.
Love motions out. He actually does the elementary school, "Hey, I'm open," waving for the ball, and then Mitchell Evans runs open, sort of mid-range beneath it. Or remember that? Yeah, it was against Louisville where Harrison had a fake block, then slipped open deep, and Louisville fell for it. So I think stuff like that is in play. And then I think you guys mentioned in segment one the pass to Faison that got wiped out by Emil Wagner's non-hold hold. You get a couple of those every game, that opens a lot of things up.
Still think, and they tried something with Love again, and they were completely outnumbered. They were outnumbered by two defenders in that play, and so it just hasn't worked. And we talked about the difficulty of tunnel screen, bubble screen, screens in general. And but it's still worth trying because you want to get Jeremiah Love the football out there. So I wouldn't give up on that. They just need to execute it better, or it has to be designed better because, like I said, the one that they ran, they were down two men in order to make it work. So it didn't even come close to working.
From G Weave 5, he has a question about the starting offensive line in 2025. And G Weave 5's guess is quite different than you have seen recently. Well, not really. Gerby Lambert, Charles Jagasa, Ashton Craig, Billy Schroth, Emil Wagner. So we are leaving out starters.
You're leaving out Pat Coogan, who continues to play really solid football for Joe Rudolph, the coach that doesn't get any credit.
I'm glad you said
Spindler.
Coogan because I think Coogan will come back for sure because Craig might not be 100% healthy either, and Coogan could be the starter.
Yeah, definitely. Pendleton. I thought they made the right move in keeping the veteran Spindler in there and removing Pendleton to put Schrouth in there. Yeah, it's I think that could be it. It could be also excluded from that is Knapp.
I was gonna say it could be Knapp, Jagasa.
The guy that should probably be looking to go elsewhere is Sullivan Absher, because I don't know how in the heck he's going to get by those 9 guys. And I think all things being equal, I think he's a pretty good candidate to be going into his 3rd year at Notre Dame. But Lambert, you need to get in the lineup. Jagasa, they're going to want to get in the lineup. I think you make a good point, Tim, about Coogan and Craig, and maybe Craig not being ready. Schrouth, obviously. Wagner, obviously. They got a really good situation going there with their depth.
Yeah, that's I like Coogan coming back as maybe who's your starting center week 1. Because Craig isn't there, who knows? But they've got a lot of options, which you need because sometimes you lose starting offensive linemen to injuries, as Notre Dame has found out this season.
Drew, what do you think?
Yeah, I'll be really curious, I think, particularly with Knapp when we get into spring ball next year, where they have him and if he's competing at guard or something like that, and kind of what they see. Because that experience, how he's been improving, it kind of seems hard that he would go from this to then just not playing all next year. I get why he might, but that's what I'm kind of curious
I feel like he'd have to not play well next offseason. He would have to get beaten out to the point where they're like, well, no, we have a returning 13 or I blew it there. I should say we have a returning 16 game starter. We have a returning 14 game starter, and we're going to try to ride it. But and then he goes head to head. We're probably selling him short way too fast here. Jagasa has to. With that injury, when does Charles Jagasa start training to beat out Pendleton or Schrouth or Spindler or whoever else wants to come back and help out?
And I look at those. We talk about 9 guys, and Absher would be the 10th. And guys that are pure interior offensive linemen: Spindler, Coogan, Pendleton, Schrouth, Craig. In my opinion, Jagasa.
Not as pure though. He's not pure.
No, okay, you're right.
He's not,
right. You're right. And the same way with Absher, he can play. But, I think GW5 puts out a good 5 there, so to speak. But there's going to be a ton of competition The two deep would be incredible.
It'd be the first time the second team offensive line would be better than the second team defensive line.
Oh yeah, and that's not a great thing, Pete Sampson.
Yeah,
We don't.
we've never seen that happen before.
We've never seen it, and you don't want to see that happen. Yeah.
All right, question from the Rocks 61. Of the four teams remaining on the schedule, which individual player on any of the teams could cause the biggest headaches for the Irish?
I mean,
So
Zachariah Branch
go ahead.
causes headaches.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go
He's-
ahead.
Yeah.
if we had a draft, he would be the first overall
I think
pick
he
for
would
all
be
of
the
us.
first
Yes.
one. Is that you guys say that, Drew, or somebody else?
No, I'm actually going to say somebody else. I'm going to go
Good.
with USC's running back, Woody Marks, just because of
He's good.
I think that's the weaker part of Notre Dame's defense is the rushing attack, and you obviously have to respect guys like Miller Moss and
Yeah.
what Branch can do. But against, I looked, he's faced 3 top 25 rush defenses in terms of yards per carry allowed, and he has 293 yards, 5.9 yards per carry against those teams, and almost 1,000 all-purpose yards so far. So I think, given Notre Dame's weaknesses, I think maybe that's a guy that they might have problems with.
Yeah, great find, Drew. And plus, the dude's got well over 2,000 career rushing yards. He's a really good player. He's a big dude. You know, I think if Florida State had somebody to throw the football to Ja'Kai Douglas, that would be, Benson has just kind of died on the vine because they don't have anybody to throw him the football. Uiagalelei has been hurt, but they haven't been able to generate anything beyond him. So
Bryson Daly is a little bit of an issue for people.
Bryson Daly is definitely an issue. There's no doubt. That's a good call. Virginia's really struggled lately. I thought
Sanker could give Riley Leonard and Notre Dame troubles. Jonas Sanker, the safety.
He could. Well, I was thinking offense.
I wrote down
really
Malachi
good set.
Fields, their wide receiver for Virginia. Is not bad. I
He's
think
a
he has
good player.
over 400 yards of receiving,
player.
4 touchdowns. He's 6'4", like he's a big guy.
Yeah.
So
I haven't checked Notre Dame's transfer to Virginia recently, but
Has
he's
not
been
done a
banged
lot.
up, and I don't think he's done hardly anything.
he's
And
not done a lot there.
now they're back to being a 500 team, and the coach is probably on the hot seat there for what that's worth now. But yeah, there's some people there. I think mainly though they're USC guys, and
I like Jonas. Maybe Riley Leonard's next interception is Virginia Jonas Sanker.
okay,
He's a player.
okay. 46 in a row without an interception, by the way.
So, all right. How many? That's going to be
In case you're counting at home.
66 next time after it goes 18 for 20 against Florida State. So
Yeah.
there you go.
All right, we're going to wrap up with a question from O. Mullen. How's the media experience at MetLife? Drew didn't get a chance to make the trip, but the three of us were there.
Windy, very windy there. That stood out to me. Also, a very gray stadium.
Cottonseed. There was Cottonseed, right?
Yeah, it's fine. Like
It's
a nice view from the. I thought it was a nice view from the press box.
I did too.
They did a nice job with that. The rest of the stadium feels kind of like anywhere USA. There's like nothing really distinct about it.
All
When
right.
was it originally built? Because it's been around forever. They've
That's the thing.
refurbished
Like
it.
it's kind of new, but feels like it was built in like
In the-
1996.
Yes,
Absolutely.
yeah,
If
like
not-
just
if
before
not
Notre Dame
before
renovated
that.
the first time.
It's a big chunk of cement, is what it feels like.
Yes, but I want to give
It
credit. 'cause I
opened in
read this.
2007.
Wow. Does not feel like that at all. It's like they
No.
missed out on all the new
I'm
flashes.
sorry, it opened in 2010.
That's
It feels like the football equivalent of U.S. Cellular Field, the new Comiskey.
Yeah.
Just
I
like
think that's
they totally missed on all the architectural advancements that had been made in stadium construction, and yet it opened in 2010. So they should not have missed on all those
Right.
advancements in stadium construction.
it's
I did
Jersey.
take this differently though, Priester. I think the MetLife people and like the attempt they made, it's a noon game, so you can't have that incredible. Like
Yeah.
the attempt they made, the help they give you, the area to sit and eat and watch games and all the stuff. I thought they did a better job
Yeah.
than Mercedes Benz.
Yeah, the accommodations are very nice, but I looked at it from the perspective of, although it was a media
Yeah, the fanciness of the place is
Yeah,
we had our
yeah.
own TV. We had our own TVs for replays at Mercedes Benz in front of our seats. That's
Yeah.
all of us. Usually, it's like people that haven't been in there. It's like one big one for like every 6, 7
And
seats or something.
you're
Riddle it,
leaning,
like-
you're leaning back and straining your head to look at it.
AT&T Stadium in Arlington with their grandmothers baking cookies. That opened a year before MetLife.
Wow.
Oh wow.
Like that doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't.
No, you wouldn't think that when you look at it. Maybe a little bit from the outside, but even then, like, think about how beautiful Mercedes-Benz was from the outside. It was gorgeous.
Yeah, it was beautiful. It's beautiful inside. I mean, the roof coming off too.
Yeah.
That was the way it swirls.
Yeah.
The best part though, that AT&T thing. I don't know if Drew's heard the story before. I'm sure Jack and Tim and 95% of our listeners have. But Pete, there was some point during the first time we went there. This is 2013. So
Yeah.
Pete is coming back from a pregame meal, and he was like, "That was really good." I was like, "The nachos?" He goes, "No, they have like an entire meal around the corner. They had 2 areas for different meals." It's like, are you kidding?
Oh wow.
I thought the nacho bar was the coolest thing I've seen in the world.
that
And
was the
Pete found
best.
like the grandmother baking fresh cookies in the back,
Yeah.
and street tacos were being brought in right that minute, fresh and hot. That was incredible. But
With the aroma
Yeah.
wafting through the
So good.
press box. Anyway,
No.
look, we NFL stadiums, it's always great to go to an NFL stadium. It's just that, MetLife is just it's Jersey tough.
It's still better than
I'll-
FedEx Field. Speaking of Navy venues from yesteryear, that was maybe
Yeah.
the worst.
Yeah.
And I'll add that it's better to Notre Dame this year, MetLife is, than it is to the Jets or the Giants, who I saw this on Instagram, but they have combined 6 touchdowns in MetLife this year to Notre Dame 7. So
That's
there is at least it's good to them, I guess.
hey,
that's
I have
good,
to
Drew.
ask this question just so people are gonna get mad. Why is Lawrence Taylor not anywhere in that building? His picture or his name?
I don't. Well, neither was Phil Simms. Neither
No,
was.
there was a Phil Simms.
Was there a Phil Simms?
live
Okay.
photo thing.
He had a big picture next to Y.A. Tittle and Eli Manning.
Carl Banks.
Okay. I guess
Carl
I didn't
Banks
make
was
it
there?
down that far.
But
Did they
yeah.
remove it? Did they remove it?
I
You
don't
can't
know.
tell me that never went up.
Yeah,
I don't know.
strange.
Did he play well enough to earn something like that,
I
Tim?
know
or-
he's not a great guy here, but he's doing some bad things. But did they just take it down?
I don't know, man.
He's
but we
Lawrence
didn't see
Taylor,
him.
man.
I know. We didn't see him. We didn't see him. Well, we're going to wrap it up there. We appreciate you joining us today. And we want to remind you that if you like this and all of our stuff, number one, subscribe to IrishIllustrated.com and check us out on YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram and all the stuff that we're doing video wise. Until next time, Tim Priester, Tim O'Malley, Drew Mentok, Pete Sampson. Thanks for joining us, guys. Thanks for joining us, listeners. This has been Irish Illustrated Insider.